So the Supreme Court is set to weaken voting rights protections. Huh. One of the things about the Supreme Court is that once Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed, I remember that feeling of like, oh God, she couldn't have died at a worse time. And everybody around me was like, yo, she should have stepped down a long time ago when people were asking her to step down. And yeah, that set us up for what we're looking at now. So,
well, before you move on, though, the politeness, the political correctness, Democrats also played a part in this.
Absolutely.
My president is black, decided in the name of political correctness and politeness to not use his authority to appoint another justice.
And Trump was not on that. He was
nobody's on that. That's what I'm saying.
Nobody, yeah.
The whole others, they're not on that ever. Yeah. We still trying to both sides of the fence this thing. We still trying to, let's make sure we're all one on this. Why are we still doing this?
Well, the result of all of that comes this. This from Reuters. The U.S. Supreme Court signaled on Friday that it will assess the legality of a key component of a landmark federal voting rights law, potentially giving its conservative majority a chance to gut a provision enacted 60 years ago that was intended to prevent racial discrimination in voting. The brief order issued by the court raises the stakes in a case already pending before the justices involving a legal challenge to an electoral map passed by Louisiana's Republican-led legislature that raised the number of black majority U.S. congressional districts in the state from 1 to 2. The justices said they will consider whether it violates the U.S. Constitution for states to create additional voting districts with populations that are majority black, Hispanic, or another minority as a way to remedy a judicial finding that a state's voting map likely violates the 1965 Voting Rights Act. The case, due to be heard by the justices in their next term that begins in October, sets the stage for a major ruling expected by the end of June 2026 that could affect the composition of the electoral districts around the United States. The court has a 6-3 conservative majority. The dispute strikes at the tensions between the Voting Rights Act, passed by Congress during the U.S. Civil Rights era to bar racial discrimination in voting, and adhering to the constitutional principle of equal protection, which limits the application of race when the borders of electoral districts are redrawn. Boundaries of legislative districts across the country are reconfigured to reflect population changes every decade in a process called redistricting. Okay, so one of the things that we've had to talk about a few times over the years is gerrymandering. And when this redistricting takes place, it's often poor black communities that have their voting power weakened, diluted, right? And, the brief explanation of gerrymandering for folks that may not know is if you take say a couple of districts. One district is, 70% black, 30% white. The other district is 30% white, 70% black. And you draw the lines in such a way, you could end up with two districts that both have a white majority and a black minority. And so you don't have a majority black district, right? You can just circle these zip codes into this zip code because they already have a majority white, and then you leave a handful of black folks with the remaining white folks, and then they end up being a majority white district themselves. And so it's just basically data manipulation, and it's something that has plagued black communities, especially since the Voting Rights Act was passed. It 100% of the time, every single time, was done by the conservatives to weaken the black vote. And they always have some excuse for it. But the fact is that after, what did it say, 60 years, we know that it's racism, and it's a power grab. And this often happens in red states where the elected officials are conservative and are not keen on sharing power with black folks. Certainly not with black folks who don't view the world or politics the way that they do. And so, there's been this constant battle, pushback against this. And now we're seeing the implications of having a super majority of conservatives on the Supreme Court elected by a president who is not a decent person. I don't want to say that it's because he's a Republican, because I don't believe that to be true. Where I grew up in Arizona, we had a conservative named John McCain, and I was no fan of John McCain. I'm not gonna pretend like I was. I was no fan of his politics.
I was about to interrupt you because I was there with you.
Yeah.
And you were not a fan of John McCain.
That's how I caught myself.
Not a fan of John McCain's politics. So thank you for fixing that.
But he was a good man. He was a decent man. So I was a fan of the man, not his politics. So he wouldn't have gotten my vote, but I acknowledged that he moved through time and space like a decent human being. And he did intend to work with people and make sure that he listened to people and so forth. And we all saw that. And for folks that don't know, Google John McCain's debate with Barack Obama, and you don't even need to see the full highlight reel, because the main highlight will tell you everything you need to know about him. So you don't have to be an awful person and be Republican. There's plenty of Republican people who are decent folks. They just happen to be on the side of the aisle with all the not decent folks, like the Nazis and the and the white supremacists. And
I don't know if there's plenty. I don't know if there's plenty anymore.
Well, you know what I'm trying to say.
If you're still there now, there's the choice that you made and that you continue to make.
Yeah, you dug in.
You cannot call that decency.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right. Well, I want you to weigh in here too, because I don't want to pontificate too much. This is a heartbreaking thing to ponder. But
pontificate, bro, is better than what I'm going to say. I don't have anything. Well, you know what I mean? Like it's disgusting. We use words like scary, but it's so far beyond that. That once upon a time, when legislators did things like this, they hid them with some agenda that seemed positive, and then this underlying racism was underlying. It's not underlying anymore. They're not even pretending that there's a good thing, but this just so happens to be tucked in there. Nope, we're just going to do the illegal, racist, non-constitutional thing in front of you now, because we don't care no more, because can't nobody hold us accountable, because can't nobody tell us nothing, because we can do whatever we want. We can take your rights, strip your right to vote, strip your right to autonomy, strip your right to self-determination, strip your right to doing anything that benefits you and your family and people that you care about, just because we see you as inferior to us. All of you. And by all of you, I mean almost everybody, even the people that support us. You're less than us. You're worth less than us. You deserve less than us. Less access, less capital, less resources, less access to healthcare, less access to education, less access to clean drinking water, less access to housing, less access to everything, so that we can have everything and so that you can have nothing. But keep voting for us, right? Because even though you have nothing, so do the black people. So do all the pre-marginalized communities that were already born in the circumstances that made life more difficult for them and everybody in their family tree. At least they still have nothing, right? This is the most disgusting moment in our lifetime.
Yeah.
And it gets worse every day.
Yeah. You're not wrong. Well,